What are some of the things that you've poured into the kids that you're starting to see, come to fruition now?
I think just subtle things like communication, just overall mental well-being and health. Um, I guess trust, different things like that. I guess it really just kind of stems from what I felt like I lacked or what I didn't receive in my own parenting from my parents, and I don't know. I guess just things that I felt like I've lacked myself in life, or just things, skills that I'm trying to learn now as an adult. I'm trying to give them a head start on that, I guess.
How difficult was it for you to like instill things in them that you like didn't get yourself, or even qualities that you didn't have initially?
I would say it's been difficult, if I'm being honest, because I think for a while it was me even needing to come to the realization that I did lack or I didn't have these things, and understanding how necessary certain things are, or how gaining understanding on how stuff impacted me, and like because I didn't have those things, it impacted me in these ways. So
Yeah.
I think, learning that and getting that understanding, and then changing my behavior to foster an environment where the kids can have that experience, or exercise those skills, I guess, so to speak. But I mean, that's, I guess for me, it was more of a lack, and a lack of understanding, a lack of having, I guess. But I feel like I might differ from you in terms of why I'm doing the things I'm doing now and how I got here. So I mean, what do you feel like caused you to kind of really take that charge or take that assignment on of how you wanted to raise the kid and giving them a certain environment?
I told you I wanted to be a mom since I was like a little girl. So I was like getting ready for this moment, my whole life. But because I wanted to be intentional, like you said, about creating an environment in which they can thrive.
Yeah.
And, this is obviously our first time being parents, but through observing other parents, I think it's so easy to get caught up in career and get caught up in what's going on with you personally that you don't consider,
Yeah.
like, if this is a difficult thing for me to manage, how is it impacting my kids? But like I said, I don't know how often parents are able to take a step outside of themselves and think about, is this the best environment for a child? And while a child might be able to survive a certain environment, is it ideal? Is it what's going to set them up for success? So I wanted to make sure that our relationship was A1 so that they can have a healthy representation of communication, of love, of respect. And in turn, I wanted to equip them with the skills so that as they go through life, or even as they interact with each other as siblings, that they're learning how to advocate for themselves and demand respect and be the type of people that have success later in life, not even just, career wise, but just in general.
Yeah. 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 I mean, excuse me, y'all. Um, yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think once I realized the impacts of not having that environment to thrive in, realizing, oh, I really needed this from my mom or from my dad, or I really
Mm-hmm.
needed to be able to have those open lines of communication, or, oh, I didn't really get game from them or information, or, oh, although my parents were together, I don't have a clue what it means like to be a man in a relationship or in a household, or what that looks like to show love. And then, even in addition to that, I didn't have a tight knit family in general. So even outside of my parents, like whether it's aunts and uncles and everything like that, like I wasn't groomed in this environment where everyone was close. I'm not close with a couple siblings I got and different things like that. So I think, like you said, having an environment where there's accountability, where there's um, space and room for them to talk and say what needs said, and not take offense to it and different things like that, are all things that now at this point in our lives, especially as the kids are growing, I see how important and um, how much of a role that can play, good or bad, in children's growth, because it can stunt their growth,
Mm-hmm.
and their emotional maturity
Mm-hmm.
well into their adulthood, and impact their relationships. And I think, on the flip side, if you um, really work that muscle and help them gain those skills, it could really push them ahead
Yeah.
in life.
And I think we're seeing that with our kids. Like something that's really important for us is, like you said, to equip them with skills. Like, each of them have had situations, or at least the two oldest ones have each had situations where they was dealing with drama at school with peers or whatever. But I always encourage them to advocate for themselves. Like, I want to see what you can do. I want to see what it looks like for you to stand up for yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be the little snitch who gotta run and tell their parents every time something go wrong. You need to try to resolve a situation yourself and set the tone that you don't tolerate disrespect for yourself.
Yeah.
And then if it gets out of hand or if you need additional support, we're here to support you. But like I said, I didn't want to raise kids who were dependent on us. I wanted to raise kids who know how to advocate for themselves, and like I said, how to get respect for themselves or know how to resolve conflict for themselves, so that whether we're there or not, they can stand on their own 2 feet. And I think we're seeing that, in our children. Especially Eden, we're really proud of her. She's already dealt with like girl drama and stuff like that. So for her to be a young lady and realizing like this is not how a friend treats, this is not how a friend treats you. I don't like this. The disrespect that I feel like I'm getting, I'm going to advocate for myself by speaking up to this friend. But if I don't see a change, I'm going to end the friendship because I deserve better. And I have standards for the type of friends that I'm going to have around me.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, with Knox, when he was having an issue with a peer, that was a different situation, of course, because he's on the spectrum, so he doesn't understand like the social stuff. He doesn't understand you know how calculating people can be. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he 100% like understood that he was being targeted. But even with him, it's like, as much as we want to protect him and as much as we want to fight his battles for him, autistic or not, he has to figure out in his own way what it looks like to stand up for himself, and what
Yeah.
it looks like, once again, to set the tone. Like, you can't try me in that way. I might
Mm-hmm.
not be as quick as you. I might not understand the social things that you understand. But, like I said, we had to help him navigate that space.
Yeah, and I mean, that's tough, like you said, especially, it's tough with all the kids. I think, like, when we talk to Eden and she's telling me about the interaction she's having with boys, and the name calling and the inappropriate comments, and then, you on the flip side of that with Knox, just like, all right, this is my son, that manly, testosterone side is kind of like, it's tough because for Eden, I want to go hard. Like, man, I'm about ready to knock one of these little boys' heads off
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But I think, like you said, I gotta teach her how to handle herself and how to carry herself with class and grace,
Mm-hmm.
and how to deal emotionally, with that stuff, and not let those things kind of impact her or start to feel like that's who she is or
Yeah.
define her. And then on the flip side with Knox, it's just tough because, you know, no, like you said, with him being on the spectrum, there's this side of me or this internal piece of me that has to kind of let that idea of Knox die, I guess, like that,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like he's not, you know, the most athletic, he's not the
Mm-hmm.
most coordinated,
Mm-hmm.
or even in that instance with him and the classmate, it's like I want to teach him the typical response of being able to protect yourself, being, standing up, but it's like he's not gonna roast anybody. He's
Yeah.
not gonna, like, he's not quick like that. He's not
Yeah.
gonna pick up on someone's picking at him or different things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like, he might be a little delayed with those things. And I think that's tough as a dad because it's like, I want to tell him that, like, hey, you better knock this little kid's head off,
Mm-hmm.
like, you better do, XYZ. And I remember even just kind of going through certain things with him and you could just tell like he's just such a sweet boy.
Yeah,
Like
he
it's
it's not
not
really in him, and I
it's
get
not
it.
in him, and you gotta. I had to or have to. It's a process. Like I gotta kind of let that go and also understand who he is as an individual
Yeah,
and help him have the best setup for himself. Because it's like I don't want to teach him to go do something where somebody gonna jay him or something, like, you know what I mean, like where I'm like, hey, you push him back or something like that, and he's not prepared, or
yeah,
he's not gonna be able to handle what comes next with that
yeah,
scenario. So there's that side of you in parenting where you have to understand your child
yeah,
and create an environment or a situation or equip them with skills that are gonna best suit them
yeah.
for life, I guess.
And that's something, like you said, that's challenging. Like, even for me, like I don't want to say I was mean, but I've always been very much me. I was always very much like smart mouth, like you got me messed up.
Yeah,
So even for Eden, she's so sweet. And like you said, I had this idea of like, no, that we gon', you know what I mean? Like, don't let them
checking it.
girls try you, you
Yeah,
know, whatever. And it's like, that's not who she is. So I have to, you know, tone myself down and how I would have responded as a young lady down, and teach her how to move based off of her personality and her values and her demeanor.
yeah.
And like you said, for Knox, it's like you a man and you've had to do manly things in order to protect yourself, and to have a son who's not quick witted, who's very quirky, who has interests that other black boys don't typically
Hmm.
have, who doesn't have who doesn't have the social skills, or he isn't on the level socially that his peers are on.
Right.
You know, it's hard because it's like, I want you to be somebody else so that you can handle this situation in this
Hmm.
way. But I think, you know, we've been blessed with these children with these specific um
Needs.
personalities and
Yeah.
temperaments, because we have to figure out how to work together to figure out how to support them.
Hmm.
So like I said, that has been a challenge, but I'm proud of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're showing each of us like there are different ways that you can handle yourself. And while when we were growing up, you had to handle things a certain way. Like I had to be, or I felt like I had to be a certain type of girl to get the respect that I wanted. And you might have had to move a certain way. Like we're raising kids, like, hey, you don't have to do what the world does.
Yeah.
You can be you. And yeah, people might try you and people might not like it, but they gonna respect you, because
Hmm.
what's not to respect about somebody who's themselves?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been a journey, but overall, like I said, I'm really thankful, and I think we're starting to see like the fruits of all the time. You know what I mean? Like even with me being home, I've
Yeah.
been home with these kids since they was babies. You know what I mean? They whole
Hmm.
lives. So like even the relationships that we've been able to develop, like I'm not saying that if I was working, I couldn't have built these relationships, but I'm here. Whenever these
Hmm.
kids have anything going on at school, I'm here. Whenever they come home from school, I'm here, and we can talk. I know who their friends are. I know what's going on with them. Like we talk on an everyday basis
Yeah.
to our kids. And even, you know, when Eden was struggling academically, I was in a position where it's like, okay, I'm gonna come to your classroom. I'm gonna be a part of your classroom. And I ended up, you know, having the opportunity to work with her teacher
Yeah.
and support the other kids in her classroom.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you telling me that you're having a hard time learning because it's kids in your classroom who off task. Okay, bet I'll volunteer and I'll work with the kids who are off task so that you can have a better environment. And her grades did a 180, and she ended the year off on like a perfect honor roll. So
Hmm.
it's like, you know, it's a blessing. Like it do be kind of sickening sometimes when, you know, we can't do what our peers do, or we don't have everything our peers have since we not a two income household. But at the same time, it's like when our kids do something like, dang, you actually like was listening this whole time, or you
Yeah.
implemented that thing that I taught you. It's like a blessing. You know, it's nice to see what we're accomplishing as a team, and it's nice to see like glimpses of who our kids are going to be.
Yeah. I definitely, to kind of wrap up on my end, kind of, I see who they are as individuals, whereas I feel like for me, I didn't have a clue who I was. I was being who my peoples wanted me to be or conforming to my peers around me and everything like that. And I just feel like you said, it's the early stages of seeing our kids are their own individual persons and they have their own personalities and they're okay with standing on who they are and being
Mm-hmm.
firm in that and living their truest, you know, truest versions and lives,
Yeah.
so that's it's a beautiful experience to see